right, guys, it is about midnight. I'm outside, just finished training Atlas Stones. I had a question that popped up through Instagram from someone who didn't want to be named, but it was such an interesting question. I'm already out here training, and I thought I would go ahead and address it. They asked if I've ever felt like a newbie when it came to training. I like this one. You know, honestly, when it comes to feeling like a newbie, that's probably one of the things that I've always enjoyed the most, and it thrills me because, you know, if you do something long enough, eventually you get to a point to where you feel like there's nothing else to learn. And I began, you go through sports, and I switched from taekwondo to open martial arts, and that was a whole new beginning of losing every fight for, being one of the best in America in taekwondo, and then going to sport karate, losing every fight for a year and competing just nonstop, and then finally start winning. It's such amazing. There's so much to learn. Going from bodybuilding or power building, whatever, over into strongman, and starting to learn is such an amazing experience. I've went through kind of the journeys of powerlifting and strongman and weightlifting, and every time that I've done that, the idea of walking into something that is really familiar yet completely foreign is absolutely amazing. And every day is an opportunity to learn. And the older that you get, the fewer opportunities that you seem to have to learn new things. And you either embrace that or you completely shy away from it. Depends on who you are and what your personality is. And I love learning. I absolutely love learning. And I think the last several years, let's say the last 5 years, that I got back to being something more of a strongman or a competitive strongman, or wanting to compete again. I've definitely continued to become a beginner and a beginner and a beginner, and it's been absolutely thrilled, and I've learned so much from that. But if I have to go all the way back and think about a time that I had like a total newbie moment, and it really hit me because I'm outside training Atlas Stones. It's 11:45 at night. It's 40 degrees outside on a Monday night. I've been really sick and I'm really, really sore. This question hit me really, 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 really well. I'm thinking about my first year competing in strongman. And, I did a local contest, which, back then there were no really such things as locals, because there weren't many strongman contests anyway in the US. You might have had like 6 or 8 a year at the most on a national, everything in the United States. And then they began advertising this big contest in Boston, and talking with different people through email, you learn that Boston is the big show. A huge show. There'll be international competitors there. The guys you've seen on TV were going to be there. So you got to compete as an amateur, but you got to see all these pros, world's strongest man level athletes that were going to be there. So that's the place to sign up. And, we're looking at, it was my third contest. So I did a local show. I did nationals, got second at nationals, and then signed up for Boston. And then that was just crazy, like 40 something people in my class at that level. And I did end up finishing 5th, 6th, something like that, tied for 5th. But there was a guy there, and you go back, if I'm 45 now, I'll be 46 soon. I would have been like 24, 23, complete newbie, really, really, I thought I was old at 23. But looking back, man, I was so young and green. And there was a guy that I had met at the competitions. And, at that time, meeting somebody for me was that I had met them. My parents, my mom and dad were there at all the competitions. We traveled together. We were a group. And we all met them together. And there was a guy there named Ernie Simpson. And he competed locally, but he also competed, nationally. And back then, nationally was just a different level. It was thought of as just a different level of competitors. And he was from Kentucky. So And he was just a giant of a man. I mean, I remember at Nationals, I stuffed my Tommy jeans, my Tommy Hilfiger Carpenter jeans with rolls of quarters and went and ate pizza before I got on the scale at Nationals so I could weigh above 275 because there was somebody I wanted to compete against who'd been trash talking me leading up to Nationals. And I wanted to be in the 300-pound weight class. So I weighed like 276, 277. And Ernie would have been, I don't know. I really don't know. 320 to 350, I don't know. And he was shorter than me. He was, it just seemed like as big as a house. And I don't know how old he was, but in strongman, I felt like a little kid. I felt like a young kid, which is amazing now because I'm the old man. And he may have been 5-10 years older than me at the time. But he was so experienced, and I get to Boston, and we meet at the airport, and we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, and hanging out together, and talking. And for me, it's just an opportunity to ask questions because he's been competing for several years at this point, and I'm just a total rookie. I've got equipment and I'm training, but he's got all the experience. And I remember, before my first contest, I bought some Samson Power forearm sleeves for Atlas Stones. And if you know what those are, you're smiling right now because those were really hard to find, and I got some. And that was just you wore them on your arms to protect your arms, and that was a time period where nobody had sleeves. Nobody had sleeves. Everybody trained bare arms. There was nobody thought about using tape, nothing like that. You just lifted stones and you ripped your arms apart. You took 2 weeks off before the contest so your arms would heal, so you could go to a contest without scabs all over your arms. And I remember talking to him, and I noticed that he didn't wear sleeves when he did stones. And I remember having a conversation with him, and just sitting next to him, and he's just a giant of a burly. I mean, he worked on train wrecks for a living. So a train wrecked, and he went out and solved it. I don't know. I really don't know. And I remember his email address was something about train wreck. And that's 20-something years ago. Wouldn't it be amazing if his email address was still that? Wouldn't it though? But I remember asking him, man, what do you do on your arms? You don't rip your arms up while you're doing stones? And he's like, yeah, I rip my arms up. It's okay. I get a callus there that, it doesn't bleed anymore. I'm like, what about the hair? Doesn't it hurt? And it pains me to even say that out loud now after 20-something years in the sport myself. And he just looked down at his arms, and his arms were just huge, like the size of my head. And I looked down at his arms, and he's got, big hairy arms across here. And he said, yeah, but I shaved my forearms. And all across here, it was just completely shaved, like a baby's butt. And I remember looking at his arm, just thinking, two thoughts. What kind of man shaves just the inside of his forearms, followed by, this giant of a man is a genius. And, I went straight back to the hotel, and I went in and shaved my forearms because, those stone sleeves were so unreliable, and they would rip so easily. What if it was my turn to go on Atlas Stones, and I went out there and I had these hairy arms. I had to put tacky on them. Tacky doesn't stick to hair. Then you go to lift the stones, and the tacky and the stones rips the hair right off your forearms. But I remember feeling like such an idiot asking him, and his answer was so simple and so plain and so straightforward. This giant of a man had no problems answering the simplest of questions to a young kid in the sport. And 20-something years later, I will never forget him there with those little sunglasses on, teeny tiny beady sunglasses, and just huge, a mountain of a man. And he's just like, yeah, I let the hair grow in here so I look normal at work, and then I just shave my forearms, and that's it. And that was it. And I felt like a total newbie. All the young guy information just right there being handed to me, so simple. And here I am 20 something years later, and look at me, hair everywhere. But look at that forearm. Let's see if we can get the forearm there, right there. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. I learned, Ernie. I learned. Hope you're proud of me, big man. 20 something years later, it's midnight. I'm outside. I just loaded the exact same stones that I had 20 something years ago when we were having this conversation. And I'm still going, man. But can't say enough great about Mr. Ernie Simpson. And hope you know you were a huge impact on my life way back then, and always a big reason why I'm still going right now. So that's one of my many complete newbie moments. So have a great one, guys. See you in the next one.